The fluorescent lights hummed softly in the East Valley Community Center as Marcus Chen wiped down the mats after another evening class. His black belt hung loosely around his waist, a symbol of 30 years dedicated to martial arts. At 58, he still moved with the grace of a man half his age, his salt and pepper hair, the only real giveaway of the decades he'd spent perfecting his craft. Marcus had built quite a reputation in their small Arizona town. His dojo attracted students from 3 counties over, all eager to learn from a man who competed nationally in his younger years. He'd won championships, trained with masters, and now ran one of the most respected martial arts schools in the region. But lately, something had been gnawing at him, a restlessness he couldn't quite name. He glanced at his watch. 7:30. The janitor would be arriving soon. Right on cue, the side door creaked open, and David Sullivan stepped inside, pushing his cleaning cart. David was 42, though the lines around his eyes made him look older. He wore a faded blue polo shirt with the cleaning company's logo and carried himself with the quiet dignity of a man who'd learned to be invisible. Marcus had seen David around for about 6 months now. The man always offered polite nod, never made eye contact for too long, and went about his work with methodical efficiency. There was something about him, though, something in the way he moved, that caught Marcus's attention. One evening a few weeks back, Marcus had stayed late reviewing competition footage. He'd noticed David pause by the training area, watching the screen with intensity that seemed out of place for a janitor mopping floors. When their eyes met, David had quickly looked away and moved on. But Marcus had seen that look before. It was a look of someone who understood what they were seeing. Tonight, Marcus felt that restlessness bubble up into something more reckless. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the arrogance that comes from being unchallenged for too long. "Hey there," Marcus called out, his voice friendly but with an edge of something else. David looked up, surprised. "Evening, sir. I'll stay out of your way." "Actually, I wanted to ask you something." Marcus walked closer, a smile playing at his lips. "You ever done any martial arts?" David's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "A long time ago. Nothing serious." "Come on now. I've seen you watching. You know what you're looking at." Marcus folded his arms across his chest. "Tell you what, how about we spar a little? Just for fun. Light contact. I could use the workout, and honestly, I'm curious." The request hung in the air between them like a challenge. David shook his head slowly. "I don't think that's a good idea, Mr. Chen. It's Marcus. And why not? Afraid you're too rusty." There was a teasing quality to Marcus's voice now, the kind of prodding that had worked on reluctant students for years. "It's not that," David said quietly. "Then what's the harm? 10 minutes. Just you and me. No one else is here." Marcus gestured to the mats. "Unless you'd rather just keep mopping." Something flickered across David's face. Pride, maybe, or memory. He set down his mop and looked at Marcus for a long moment. "All right," David finally said, "but just light sparring. And I need to take off my shoes." "Of course." Marcus felt a thrill of anticipation. This would be a good story to tell his students. The time he sparred with the janitor. David removed his worn work shoes and stepped onto the mat in his socks. Marcus noticed his stance immediately. Balanced, grounded. This wasn't someone who'd taken a few casual classes. They bowed to each other, and Marcus took his position. He'd go easy, of course. Make it fun. Let David feel like he'd held his own against a black belt. It would probably make the man's week. Marcus opened with a simple jab, testing. David slipped it with minimal movement, economical and precise. Interesting. Marcus tried a combination. Jab, cross, front kick. David deflected each one with calm efficiency, not countering, just defending. "You can hit back, you know," Marcus said, grinning. "It's just for fun." "I'd rather not," David replied. Marcus pressed harder, increasing his speed. A spinning back kick. David swayed away from it, like he'd seen it coming from a mile away. A sweep. David shifted his weight. At exactly the right moment. The smile began to fade from Marcus's face. He wasn't making contact with anything. Not even close. He threw a harder combination, real techniques now, not the playful taps he started with. David's hands moved in tight, controlled patterns, redirecting everything. There was no wasted motion, no flash, just pure technical mastery. Marcus's breath came faster. He launched a more aggressive attack, the kind he'd use in actual competition. David finally countered, a lightning-fast palm strike that stopped an inch from Marcus's ribs. Then he stepped back. "Please," David said softly. "Let's stop." But Marcus couldn't stop. His ego, his identity, everything he'd built his life around was suddenly in question. He came at David with real intent now, using techniques that had won him championships. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. David moved like water, flowing around Marcus's attack. His hands found Marcus's wrist and elbow simultaneously. He pivoted, used Marcus's own momentum, and suddenly the black belt was airborne. David controlled the throw perfectly, guiding Marcus down on the mat firmly but safely. Marcus lay there, staring up at the ceiling, the wind knocked out at him in more ways than one. David stood over him, breathing normally, not even winded. He offered his hand. Marcus took it, letting David pull him up. They stood there in silence, the hum of the fluorescent lights suddenly very loud. "Who are you?" Marcus asked quietly. David walked over to his cart and pulled out his water bottle, taking a long drink. When he spoke, his voice was tired. "My name is David Sullivan. I'm a janitor. I have a 12-year-old daughter named Emma. And yeah, I used to do martial arts." "That wasn't just martial arts," Marcus said. "That was world-class technique. I've trained with Olympians who couldn't move like that." David sat down on the bench against the wall. After a moment, Marcus joined him. "I had a different life once," David said, staring at his hands. "I started training when I was 6. My father was military, stationed in Okinawa. I learned from masters most people only read about. By the time I was 25, I was competing internationally. I won the Pan American Championships twice. I was being scouted for the Olympic team. What happened? Life happened." David's voice was quiet. "I met Sarah. We fell in love fast, got married faster. Emma came along, and suddenly I had responsibilities beyond competition. But I was stubborn. I kept training, kept competing, always chasing the next tournament, the next title." He paused, and Marcus stayed silent, sensing there was more. "I was away at the World Championships in Tokyo when Sarah got sick. She thought it was just the flu. By the time I got home 3 days later, she was in the hospital. Bacterial meningitis. She died 2 days after that. Emma was only 7 years old.